Let's move on to our third and final main topic today. And our third and final main topic today gets submitted to us by David King. And David King writes, "Hey, John, have you seen Christopher Nolan's comments on Tenet only making just shy of $350 million? Although Nolan doesn't upset about Tenet not doing that great at the box office, he did bring up his concerns regarding what lessons movie studios will take from this situation, and I find it all very interesting. I would love to know your thoughts." All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yes, of course we know Tenet was the first movie out of the gate. I mean, the first really big, significant one. I believe, New Mutants actually got out there first. Mm-hmm. But that didn't have anywhere near the profile of the new Christopher Nolan film, Tenet. And Christopher Nolan was hell-bent on wanting Tenet to be the movie to help get the movie theater industry back up and running and all that kind of stuff. Movie comes out, makes about $350 million. Listen, compared to what a movie like Tenet should have done in a world where we didn't have COVID-19, oh, that's nothing. Mm-hmm. That's nothing. In a world where there was COVID-19 and we hadn't had movies in a long time and a lot of theaters are still closed and people were questioning about whether, and a lot of people didn't even know any theaters were open, I actually always thought $350 million wasn't a bad result, all things considered. In the midst of all that, though, because of that result, a lot of studios saw what happened to Tenet as a negative sign as opposed to a positive one and decided to kind of pull back. And you can't blame them. Everybody's just trying to do what they can do to survive right now in these unprecedented COVID-19 times. Well, he was asked about this whole thing, Christopher Nolan was, and this is what he said. He said, "Warner Brothers released Tenet, and I'm thrilled that it made almost $350 million, Nolan said. But I am worried that the studios are drawing the wrong conclusions from our release. That rather than looking at where the film has worked well and how that can provide them with much needed revenue, they're looking at where it hasn't lived up to the pre-COVID expectations and will start using that as an excuse to make exhibition take all the losses from the pandemic instead of getting in the game and adapting or rebuilding our business, in other words." Now, Christopher Nolan also goes on to draw comparisons with like the restaurant industry, which is the one I've kind of drawn that comparison to, right? Like it's an industry out there where you got to get people together, but there are ways to do it that you can be relatively safe. And look, people should go. Ann and I went to an outdoor restaurant last night, mm-hmm. and it was great. We were like 15 feet away from any other table. It was great. It was a great experience.
Yeah.
There were 3 days of bookings around it. Mm-hmm. Like we had to book, we tried to get it for one day, all booked up. Try to get it for the next day, all booked up. Try to get it for the next day. We got a 6:30 table. Like, so people are going back to the restaurants because they handle safety. It seems to me like what Christopher Nolan is saying is that, look, the first movie out of the gate made this. Now, look, it is so easy to say what is good or bad or what you should or shouldn't do when you're talking about somebody else's money.
Right.
That's great for Christopher Nolan to say, "I'm thrilled we made $350. Yeah, you know why? Because you're not the one who paid for the movie, Christopher. That wasn't your checkbook that wrote the checks to pay for that movie to get made, and it isn't your losses. Last I heard, Christopher Nolan got paid to do that movie. You know who lost money? Warner Brothers lost money. It's real easy to say what other people should do with their money when it's not yours. So just want to throw that out there. But Aaron, I think he raises a valid point. That point being that when Tenet came out and it made that $350 million, there were 2 ways the studios and the movie industry could have proceeded from there. Way number 1 would be, okay, that is our first foot forward. That's our starting point. Now let's build some momentum. Let's get the next couple of films out. We know they're not going to be where we want them to be, but the idea is to build them. Mm-hmm. And Christopher Nolan's analogy, restaurants have taken off. Or we can approach it of, Tenet just lost Warner Brothers a lot of money. Mm-hmm. We cannot have Bond lose a bunch of money. We cannot have this movie lose a bunch of money. We can't have Black Widow lose a bunch of money. Or back to Warner Bros. Again, we can't have Wonder Woman lose a bunch of money. And that's why I always said, hey, look, I'm not judging anybody in the entertainment industry by how they're approaching COVID, because there's no playbook here. Everybody's just doing the best they can. And it's easy for me to say, hey, Paramount, you should do this with your money. It's not my money that's being risked, right? I get it. But I think there is something to what Christopher Nolan is saying about how there was an option on the table to take the bolder approach, I guess, which was, let's start building this. I think it would have been naive to think that Tenet could come out and just instantly everything would be right back to pre-COVID ways. That Tenet was going to come out and make $800 million, and it's just as if COVID never happened. I mean, that would have been naive to think. So I get it, and I don't blame the studios at all. You don't want to put out your film, and you don't want to be that first penguin in the water or the second penguin in the water when there's another sea lion down there ready to eat you. I get that. But I also get what he's saying about, you know what, that could have been the step one. And the next movie out maybe could have done a little bit better. And then maybe the next big blockbuster out could have done a little bit better. And then we could be on not pre-COVID terms, but maybe on pretty good shape. I don't know that I agree with him, but I see where he's coming from. Anyway, Aaron, you hear two things coming from Christopher Nolan. Number one, that he is thrilled with $350 million for Tenet. And number two, that maybe he thinks that the studios took the wrong approach after Tenet came out. What are your thoughts?
I'm still a little unclear on exactly what he's trying to say. Is he saying that they should have gone ahead and released another big budget movie like a Wonder Woman or a Bond in order to entice people to come back to the theaters, and that by only having Tenet and a few other smaller budget films available, it just wasn't the continued draw for people to be interested in taking the risk? I think he's saying that the message the studio sent was that we as the studios are abandoning movie theaters right now. Right. And he thinks that was the wrong message to send. Well, I mean, again, when it's not your money, you can, I can sit there and say who the starting lineup should be every week, but it doesn't necessarily mean anything to me if that team loses. Yeah, honestly, I'm so mixed on this, because I think that there is a certain degree of fiduciary responsibility that the studios have to not only, themselves as the main financiers, but also to all of the people that are involved in the film, and making sure that the film gets a fair shake of being able to be seen by people. But, also has a moral and a societal responsibility to say, hey, until we can do this, and until we can do this in a way where we can ensure, where the movie theaters can ensure the safety of the people who are watching our movies, it's not responsible for us to try to entice people to come back into the theaters. Now, again, I'm not saying that that the theaters were doing a bad job. I mean, obviously you went to the movie theater, you said that you felt really safe, that all the precautions were taken, that there was lots of hand sanitizer, that people were distancing. I don't know. I mean, obviously, as I'm also saying it, I realize that the studios really have never given a shit about anyone's morality.
No business has. No company has.
That's true. So it really, ultimately it comes down to the money, and I think that they just get so scared. They get really scared when look at what Catwoman did for, female driven comic book films. Catwoman came out. It was a big loss financially. It was panned critically. And so for how many years, like over, decades, you heard people going, oh, I don't know, female driven superhero movie, it's not going to work. Look at Catwoman, and then all of a sudden Wonder Woman comes out and they go, oh, wow. Okay. Well, girls with capes, maybe they can do okay then, and I know Wonder Woman's not wearing a cape. So before I get attacked for that. So I think that, they do get really gun shy and they try something. If it doesn't work immediately, they just don't want to try it anymore. I don't know. I mean, who would Christopher Nolan have wanted to be the second Penguin?
Yeah.
And also what movies then would have been like, yeah, sure. You know what? We'll go ahead and, take it on the chin for, just for the sake of rolling it out so that another movie of our equal budget can do better if they're released 3 months after we are. Nobody wants to be the sacrificial lamb.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Tenet was a sacrificial lamb, but thinking, oh, we're big enough and we're bad enough to where people are going to rush back to the theaters. And so now I think this may be like, Christopher Nolan, melting in lava going, come on, guys, water's great. Come join me. So that Tenet doesn't have to be the only movie that has to, be sacrificed by the pandemic.
Well, I think he thought getting it started would get other people to pick up the rope as well. I think that's what he was thinking would happen. And I guess, I don't know. I don't know what that, 350 million was clearly not enough to get the other studios to go, let's keep this rolling.
What was the budget of the film? Do you remember offhand?
It's 200 and plus. It's an expensive movie. It's an expensive movie.
So it was more than 200. So with, P&E or P&A and worldwide distribution.
Oh, yeah, it lost money.
Yeah, definitely.
It lost money. So I don't know. It's a good, like, again, I'm not saying I necessarily agree with Christopher Nolan, but I see where he's coming from. Question is, guys, what do you make of Christopher Nolan's comments on this? And what would you have done? Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys.